Part 74. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 737. Chapter 737. So that's it. Without outsiders around, Su Jian's attitude towards Chu Xinyu became very respectful. Then when you return this time, will you return to that other world? Yes, Chu Xinyu nodded. I just realized that this body is not my original body. Su Jian, then you finally come back. Do you need to meet other people? Come here if you can in the next few days. It just so happens that I have to understand the current situation first after being away for so long. Outside the White Jade Castle. Master, please get in the car. Mei Langxiang stood beside the car door with 4 old and new pets beside him. He did not go in first, but waited for Shan Yu to come over. After Shan Yu and Gu Qi both got on the bus, Mei Langxiang set off. After everyone got on the car started moving. Shan Yu, congratulations to Mei Ju for adding 2 new favorites. Don't forget the few suggestions I gave you before. Definitely, Mei Langxiang now prefers the 2 new pets, sitting on the left and right, while the old pet can only lie at her feet. When Gu Qi saw this scene, he quickly looked away. Shan Yu noticed that Gu Qi beside him was a little dull, and gently hooked the other person's wrist with his fingertips. After catching the latter's attention, he whispered in his ear, "You still have residual effects of the medicine on your body, why don't you take a nap first? There's no need to see anything." Gu Qi's expression was startled, and he shrank his hands to avoid it. Then, he moved his position and huddled at the other end of the sofa. "Master, your little pet has a bit of personality." When Mei Langxiang saw this, he thought Shan Yu was flirting with the little pet and couldn't help but tease him. After all, few men in the extreme yin zone dare to openly confront women. "I can't help it, I just love this one," Shan Yu replied casually. "Ha ha ha, master, a man of temperament. Where? Gu Qi closed his eyes and listened to the back and forth conversation, feeling increasingly irritated, but there was no place for the attack. Under the influence of the remaining drug, Gu Qi felt sleepy again. Gu Qi held on for a while, and slowly, the chatter in his ears seemed to stop. Someone is approaching? Just as Gu Qi was about to open his eyes, a voice appeared in his head. "Go to sleep, I'm / Being a Bug in a Survival Game." Author, Kuanke. Chapter 738. In a daze, as if without any warning, Gu Qi felt like he was back to the past, when he had just been taken home. Gu Qi is a sinful child, a child who was not expected to be born. This is a problem that he has gradually become aware of since he returned to the Gu family. He thought that since he was a guilty child, he should be obedient. He thought that since he was an unwanted child, he couldn't cause trouble. He needs to be more obedient, more sensible, and more outstanding. In that case, that man may not be so annoying to care about. But later, a sudden fire at night took away the only blood relative he respected in the world. During the last meeting, the man rarely patted his shoulder and used a relatively calm tone, just like a normal heart-to-heart relationship between father and son. "Be careful with Chu Xinyu, she is a truly psychopathic and extremely crazy woman. She can easily make a normal person collapse and commit suicide. Don't try to find her, let alone try to retaliate against her. You can't fight her, because you are her biological son, and she knows all your weaknesses." He didn't believe it. He wanted to kill the woman. He thought that as long as he killed that woman, the other half of his blood would not be so dirty. "Gu Qi." A voice sounded next to his ears, gradually bringing Gu Qi's consciousness back to reality. He slowly opened his eyes. At this time, he was still in the car, but the car had stopped, and only he and Shan Yu were left in the car. "We're here, let's get off the car first," Shan Yu said, stood up and got out of the car. "Why are you standing there? Come down quickly." Seeing that Gu Qi seemed unconscious, Shan Yu urged him. Only then did Gucci react and slowly walked out of the car. Outside, there was someone arranged by Mei Langxiang. When he saw the two people coming down, he took the initiative to greet them. It's getting late, the Mei Langxiang bureau has arranged their residence. Please come with me. Thank you, Shan Yu said politely. It should. Mei Langxiang's residence is a privately built villa complex, which contains a large area of green belt and is surrounded by a 5-meter-high wall. Mei Langxiang arranged for the two of them to be brought to a room in a small villa. This is a room for two. If you need anything, just call the room phone number 1. After saying that, the man retreated on his own. Shan Yu looked at the door in front of him and blinked his beautiful eyes. A room. Right. Mei Langxiang thought that the relationship between the two was that of master and pet. Moreover, if a new pet snatched from an auction is placed on the body of any woman in the extreme yin zone, it must be tasted well on the first night. How can there be any reason to let the meat go to the mouth? Let's make do for a while. Okay. Shan Yu didn't care, he was just thinking about Gucci's mood. Gucci glanced at her, said nothing, and took the lead in pushing the door open and going in. Seeing this, Shan Yu also followed in. But when the two of them saw what was going on inside, they were stunned. The room was filled with a pink tone, the floor was covered with delicate flowers, and even the air was filled with a light fragrance, not pungent, but a bit intoxicating. What Shan Yu found most eye-catching was the red bed that occupied a prominent position. The bed, sheets, quilts, pillows, were all pink. Apart from the big bed, there was no second place to sleep, not even 2 benches or sofas. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 739. Shan Yu walked over and gestured. It's so big that 2 people sleeping at the same time won't touch each other. Shan Yu went to the closet in the corner to find another quilt and threw it on the bed. You're right, my left, no problem. After waiting for a few seconds, Shan Yu also heard the response, turned around and looked over, and found Gucci still standing by the door, showing undisguised disgust for everything in the room. When Gucci turned around and wanted to leave, Shan Yu stopped him. Don't forget our current fake relationship. It's not strange to sleep in the same room, but if we sleep in separate rooms on the first night, it will be difficult for me, the sponsor, to admit it. People explain it. Before Shan Yu could finish speaking, she noticed that Gucci's eyes had become a little unkind. Shan Yu returned a very friendly smile and reminded, it's better to stay for now. Also, are you sure you don't want to take off your collar first? Collar? Gucci raised his hand and touched it. The next second, he pressed the button on the back and dropped the collar on the ground. Come here. Shan Yu sat on the edge of the bed and waved to Gucci. Gucci did not move. Let's get down to business, the dungeon mission, Shan Yu added. Gucci raised his eyes slightly, glanced at her, and walked over reluctantly. Is there something wrong with this round of dungeons? Except for the dungeon information, the main quests, etc., there are all question marks. It's unclear. Shan Yu supported the bed with both hands, raised his head slightly, and looked at Gucci. Along the way, Gucci kept silent except for squeaking at first, and his mood was obviously not right. Shan Yu now raised the issue of the dungeon mission. Thinking of this, Gucci should be able to say a word or two, right? Only when you find the main mission can you leave. Shan Yu didn't expect that. When Gucci opened his mouth, it seemed like he was talking nonsense. The main quest cannot be found, and players will be stuck here forever. Hearing this, Shan Yu blinked her beautiful eyes. What? It seems to be true. What kind of hot chicken game is this? Shan Yu, Will the main mission this time also require players to explore by themselves and then trigger it? Have no idea. Gucci only said these 3 words. Forget it, it's only the first day, there's no rush. Shan Yu casually patted the bed surface, which was quite elastic. Let's rest tonight. You should be tired too. The Extremian Zone has great restrictions on men. We'd better leave this dungeon within 7 days, otherwise. As he spoke, Shan Yu's eyes paused on Gucci. He paused, causing the latter to gradually frown. Gucci, what? Ahem. Shan Yu coughed twice, and then took out his mobile phone from his pocket. Click on the recent records of the browser, you will know after taking a look. Gucci took it without knowing why. 2 minutes later. The phone was thrown to the ground by someone who was frightened and angry. Fortunately, there was a layer of flowers on the ground, which prevented it from being broken. Calm down. Shan Yu picked up the phone and placed it next to the bed. After learning about the dungeon information and his experience in the auction, Gucci was able to guess what was going on in the dungeon world. But he didn't expect that things were more serious and outrageous than he imagined. Shan Yu joked, Gucci, in this round of dungeons, I suggest you follow me and don't run around. Shut up, Gucci said coldly. Tisk. Finally, not so lifeless. Shan Yu tilted his head and looked at the bathroom in the room. Would you like to take a bath, to get rid of bad luck or something like that? Hearing this, Gucci was slightly startled. Shan Yu stood up, first went to the bathroom to look around, and then came out. It's quite well equipped. You can wash it first. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 740. Gucci closed the bathroom door. There was a large bathtub inside. Even if 2 or 3 people could get in together, it would be more than enough, but Gucci had no intention of using it. There was a separate shower installed on the wall. Gucci first took off his clothes and then turned on the shower. The hot water poured out from the hole in the shower head and slowly followed Gucci's eyebrows and hair. It flowed down, and finally dripped onto the smooth white tiles, forming a thin stream of water and sinking into the drainage hole. Outside the villa, it was raining heavily. In the bathroom, the rising heat lingered around Gucci's body. He closed his eyes and shook his head slightly, but his temples ached slightly. One hand supported the nearest wall, and the other hand reached up to his forehead and touched the temperature. Why is it a bit high? Gucci's whole body began to feel hot. He felt that it was not because of the hot water. Outside the bathroom, Shan Yu thought about whether to bring another thick quilt over, and then make a 38-meter line in the middle of the bed. After making a few gestures, Shan Yu went to the closet and rummaged through it again. There were no thick quilts, so Shan Yu took a few more, folded them all, and placed them in the middle of the bed. Later, Shan Yu sat by the bed and continued to check information online with his mobile phone. The main quest of the dungeon is not shown. However, according to the main quests given in previous dungeons, they usually involve solving a certain thing or avoiding a certain thing. Shan Yu went to check the recent major events or some unusual things that happened in the Jiyan zone, but she browsed several times and still couldn't see which one might be the main mission. In addition, the panel did not respond at all, and no prompts appeared. Boom! A burst of thunder came from the window, interrupting Shan Yu's thoughts. Huh? It's thundering and it's raining heavily. Shan Yu approached the window, looked outside, then locked the window and closed the curtains. Suddenly, Shan Yu paused. She looked down at the interface of her mobile phone and switched to another browsing history with her fingertips. It's raining heavily, the extreme factor increased sharply. Shan Yu turned to look in the direction of the bathroom, walked over in a few steps, and slapped the bathroom door with his hand. Gucci? How are you? Can you hear me? Click. The bathroom door was opened from the inside, and Gucci walked out while holding onto the wall. He lowered his head, and his hair, which was wet with water, was dripping with a few drops of water from time to time. Headache, so hot. Before Shan Yu could hear clearly what Gu Qi said, the latter suddenly lost strength and fell down. Shan Yu could only help the person and bring him to the bed. Sit down first. Gu Qi sat on the edge of the bed obediently and shook his head, but the vision in his eyes gradually became blurry. I forgot to tell you, in the extremely cloudy zone, when weather with a serious impact occurs, such as heavy rain, snowstorm, etc., the extremely negative factor will increase sharply. Before, it was just a subtle influence, but now it is raining heavily outside, which will affect your health. The impact will increase. Shan Yu reached out and touched Gu Qi's forehead. It was very hot and he felt that the temperature was still rising. Consequences? Gu Qi asked with his eyes closed. Men who have not completed the physical transformation will have more intense characteristics and may also shorten the physical transformation period. Do you feel cold or hot now? The whole body is hot on the outside and cold on the inside. This is one of the characteristics of the physical transformation on the third day. Gu Qi was silent for a moment. Hot. That's okay. External heat and internal coldness are one of the characteristics of the physical transformation on the third day. You've only had 1 day less than that. Hearing this, Shan Yu felt a little relieved. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 741. Shan Yu sat cross-legged on the other side of the bed. There is no idea for the main mission, but you can find someone first. Susu and the others also entered this round of dungeons, right? Gu Qi pressed his temples, his tone a bit tired. Probably. Then we can use Mei Langxiang's power to try to find Susu in the extreme yin zone, but for Qin Qi, it may be difficult to find him. Shan Yu lowered his head and scrolled through the phone interface. If you can find one, it's one. There is also the extreme sun zone. They may not all be here. That's right. It's just you, Gu Juyi, who was unlucky and was transported into the extremely negative zone. Then I will find a suitable reason tomorrow, and then. Slowly, Shan Yu found that there was no movement around her. She turned around and was stunned for a moment. The man was wearing a set of long grey pajamas that he had just changed into, and his body was half shrunk on the other side of the bed. At this time, his eyes were closed tightly, and his brows were slightly frowned, as if he was a little uneasy. Gu Qi fell asleep. Shan Yu stared deeply at the face in front of her that had removed its usual indifferent disguise, leaving only a clean and defenseless sleeping face. There was a somewhat complicated look in her eyes, but in the end, everything was submerged in calmness. After a while, Shan Yu took a quilt, spread it out, and then covered Gu Qi's body. After doing this, Shan Yu turned around with calm eyes. Come out. 2 seconds later, a white light emitted from Gu Qi's body. The white light floated up and landed on the floor in front of Shan Yu. When the white light dissipated, the figure of the man in white slowly appeared. Shan Yu supported the bed with both hands and tilted his head. Are you the spirit of his professional props? The man in white nodded slightly. How do you know? Shan Yu's eyebrows gradually became tinged with a chill. Also, does he know? At this time, in Shan Yu's inventory, the soul invitation letter quietly emitted a faint light. The man in white didn't move his lips at all, but looked calmly into Shan Yu's eyes. A few seconds later, Shan Yu's eyes flashed and he crossed his arms. It's understandable that you wanted to find someone to help your master at that time, but you took it upon yourself to make me remember some unpleasant things. You are so confident that I won't get angry, and kill your master. Man in white. Shan Yu continued, since he doesn't know, I think you won't be free enough to remind him, right? The man in white nodded. Okay, I don't have anything to ask anymore. Shan Yu looked away. The implication is that you can disappear now. The man in white paused for a moment. He raised his eyes to look at Shan Yu, his pupils seemed to be filled with silver stars. At this time, Shan Yu's expression fluctuated slightly, but soon returned to his usual calmness. She says. Meaningless. Hearing this, the man in white nodded slightly. Then, his figure turned into a ball of white light again and returned to Guqi's body. Shan Yu browsed the information alone for a while. After feeling sleepy, he turned off the light and went to sleep. Copy the next day. Morning. After Shan Yu woke up, he turned around and looked at the door next to the 38th parallel. There was nothing there except a refolded quilt. Shan Yu sat up while rubbing his eyes. Guqi walked out of the bathroom, still wearing his pajamas from last night. Guqi walked over, his face slightly depressed. The inventory can't be used. Oh, Shan Yu said casually before he realized the problem. Have you put on the collar? Are you so self-conscious? Just take it off again. I'm not wearing it. Huh? Shan Yu blinked her beautiful eyes, and her eyes fell on Guqi's neck. He really wasn't wearing it. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 742. Shan Yu immediately checked his inventory. Well, it works. Isn't it just your inventory that can't be used? No. Could the change in physique also affect the inventory? Guqi was silent for a second and said, in some dungeons, some factors will be set to limit the use of the player's inventory. Then in your current situation, you are restricted? Hearing this, Shan Yu's eyes turned slightly and fell on Guqi's pajamas. Then you can't use the inventory now. Your clothes can't be changed, right? Guqi looked down and said in a cold tone, I changed it last night. I washed it and can still wear it. With that said, Guqi really planned to take action now. Shan Yu said, wait a minute. Guqi paused slightly, turned his head, and looked inquiringly. Have you ever seen a man and a woman wearing their original clothes after doing that? Shan Yu's tone became a little playful. Guqi was stunned for a moment, and he couldn't react for a while. Shan Yu was still staring at him, but with a hint of teasing on her lips, she reached out and pressed button 1 on the phone on the bedside table. Bring me 2 sets of clothes, Shan Yu said to the person on the other end of the phone. Okay, just a second. Beep. After hanging up the phone, he thought about it belatedly and finally realized what Shan Yu was laughing about just now, and his face instantly became gloomy. You? Huh? What's the matter? Shan Yu got out of bed and approached Guqi. His tone was very innocent. Guqi took a few steps back. You, stop. When Shan Yu heard this, he honestly stopped. Seeing this, Guqi breathed a sigh of relief. But the next second, Shan Yu approached Guqi again, just past Guqi, and then teased in the latter's ear. I'm going to wash up. Mr. Guju, have you misunderstood something? Are you still afraid that I will eat you? Guqi. 10 minutes later. Their clothes were delivered to them, and they went to the bathroom to change their clothes. Are you going to stay here or go out with me? Shan Yu asked after Guqi had changed his clothes. In extremely yin areas, it is common for women to carry a little boy with them at all times. However, if they go out, they have to wear a collar all the time, which is somewhat insulting. Together Guqi gave the answer simply. He didn't want to be like a useless person and could only sit back and wait for death. Okay, Shan Yu was not surprised to get this answer. Follow closely, don't get lost. If a man is taken away and lost in the extreme yin area, he will be in great personal danger. Guqi, shut up. Shan Yu took out the collar and handed it to Guqi, asking the latter to put it on himself. After getting ready, the two went to find Mei Langxiang. Shan Yu's excuse was to find his lost little junior sister. Originally, Shan Yu made up a false identity for himself, that is, following a hermit who had been practicing for many years. Now, another junior sister was temporarily selected. After Mei Langxiang learned about it, he immediately said that he would cover it for her. So Shan Yu described the general characteristics of Xia Sutingyu, and then, all the men sent by Mei Langxiang were beaten to death. "Master, please help me take a look at this first." After asking Mei Langxiang to help find someone, Shan Yu could not guarantee his desire to become beautiful and have children, but the former one had some ideas. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 743. Ding dong. The doorbell of the hotel room was rang, and Sutingyu inside immediately walked out of bed. Opening the door, getting the takeout, closing the door, finally, Sutingyu put the takeout on the table and opened it in a few seconds. While eating, Sutingyu made a call on his mobile phone. "Yes, I want to send a missing person notice." The voice on the other end of the phone, "Please describe the appearance and certain characteristics of the person you are looking for." Sutingyu was about to describe Qin Chi's appearance, but when he thought that this was a very gloomy area, he rolled his eyes slightly and changed his tone. "Her name is Yu Dan, she is mine." "Sister, my name is Susu, she." "Okay, the information has been recorded here, please wait patiently for the news." Call ended. Sutingyu continued to finish the rest of his breakfast. "I don't know if Sister Shan Yu is in the extreme yin area or if she can hear me. How can I find Qin Chi and Guju?" Gilu. After eating breakfast, Sutingyu was ready to go out and try his luck everywhere to see if he could meet anyone, while looking for clues to the main mission. Regarding the main mission of this round of dungeons, Sutingyu also thought about it while waiting for the takeout. The problem of male-female antagonism in Yin-Yang continent is too extreme. Will the main mission be to solve this problem? The key factor that can cause the problem of antagonism between men and women is the production of yin and yang factors. So far, researchers in the Yin-Yang continent have only studied the existence of the yin-yang factor, but have no idea at all about how it is generated and how to eliminate it. Furthermore, according to Sutingyu's three views, the worldview problem of male and female opposition in yin and yang continent is extreme and pathological. But if it were placed on the NPC of yin-yang continent, it would feel like a very common thing. Shouldn't players be allowed to fight against the worldview of this dungeon world on their own? Sutingyu folded her hands and counted the dungeon attributes that have appeared so far: survival, catastrophe, puzzle solving, thriller, hunting, escape, fairy tale, transformation. The new dungeon attributes for July have not appeared yet. Substituting the existing dungeon attributes into this round of dungeon world, Sutingyu thought about possible combinations of main tasks, but every time he thought of a possibility, he felt that it was not very reliable. After leaving the hotel, Sutingyu pondered whether to walk alone or take a taxi or something. After struggling for a moment, Sutingyu chose to buy a bicycle from the bicycle shop next door. Within a moment, Sutingyu got on the road riding a bicycle that didn't even have its protective film removed. After setting up several routes on his phone, Sutingyu rode his bicycle while looking around at the flow of people. In some roadside shops, TVs and radios sometimes broadcast something, such as missing person notices. Sutingyu adhered to the idea of going wherever there was excitement. When encountering some emergencies, she stayed for a while just to gamble and see if she could trigger the main mission. But until 12 o'clock at noon, after shopping around Sutingyu all morning, I found nothing, so I could only find a restaurant to satisfy my hunger problem. In a small noodle shop. Sutingyu was eating noodles, sucking when suddenly she felt a gaze from behind her secretly looking at her. Sutingyu turned his head calmly and glanced in that direction with his peripheral vision. There was a table of 3 women. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 744. Chapter 744. Who are they? Why do they want to spy on the little fairy? They. While Sutingyu was thinking wildly, he saw from the corner of his eye that the three women seemed to have made up their minds. They stood up together and walked towards Sutingyu's direction. Sutingyu, surprise sigma, degree. Help. There is a bad guy who wants to abduct the little fairy. Sutingyu secretly inserted his left hand into his pocket, ready to reveal the Dabao stick, name, Liu stick, in the inventory at any time. Among the three, someone asked Sutingyu, "Excuse me, is your name Yususu?" Ah, Sutingyu was confused for a moment. What kind of fish Susu? Who is Yususu? Laughing to death, which fool would call such a rustic name? Seeing Sutingyu's wary look, the woman explained, "It's like this. There is a Miss Shan who is looking for Yususu. According to the information she provided, you match Yususu's characteristics in all aspects." Miss Shan? Sutingyu blinked her big eyes. Could it be Sister Shan Yu? Yususu, Susu. Shan Yu often calls her Susu, so this Miss Shan is probably Sister Shan Yu. My name is Yu, Susu, and I am indeed looking for someone. Where is Miss Shan now? Can I go see her? Sutingyu stood up excitedly. Of course the woman didn't think there was anything wrong. It was normal for Sutingyu to be wary. When Sutingyu really saw Shan Yu in person, he couldn't help but have a look of surprise on his face. Before actually meeting the person, Sutingyu had some doubts in his heart. Okay, now I really found someone. Eh? Guju, are you there too? Sutingyu was pleasantly surprised for the second time. It turned out that Guqi and Shan Yu had already met. Guqi glanced at her and then looked away. This guy knew at a glance that he had not found Qin Lin. Thank you. The three women who brought Sutingyu over were still standing aside, and Shan Yu thanked them. That's right, master. If nothing happens, we'll leave first. When Sutingyu heard this, he blinked his big eyes curiously. What is a master? How did Sister Shan Yu become a master? Shan Yu, yeah. After they left, there were no outsiders present. Sutingyu couldn't wait to ask, Sister, how did you become a master? It's a long story. In short, it's all luck. Shan Yu blinked his beautiful eyes. Susu, you have an additional identity now. We are the apprentices of a hidden boss with some unique methods. You are my junior sister, your name is Yususu, and my name is Shanchuang 11 /. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 745. Shan Yu turned his head and glanced at the servant passing by not far away, and then suggested, let's go to a suitable and quiet place first, and then we can chat slowly. There are people coming and going here, and it is not suitable to talk about copies. Okay, Sutingyu had no objection. The three of them went to the small villa that Mei Wengxiang assigned to Shan Yu. Currently, only Shan Yu and Guqi live here. Shan Yu, Susu, do you have any ideas for this main mission? How about doing something? Sutingyu touched his chin and came up with an idea that he had been thinking about for a long time. Huh? What's going on? Shan Yu blinked her beautiful eyes. Let's talk about it in detail. At first reaction, Shan Yu did not refuse, but instead became slightly interested. Ahem. Sutingyu coughed twice. Sister, looking at so many rounds of dungeons, which round of dungeon missions are not all about encouraging players to cause trouble? I guess, this round of dungeons must also be Zhangzi eye drop. The copy that once suffered, beat it up. Also, wow, we encountered a strange phenomenon before the start, causing 44,444 players to enter this dungeon world at the same time. What does this mean? Sutingyu's eyes sparkled. What does it mean? Shan Yu took over. Sister, do you feel that this copy world is actually a real world? Sotingyu lowered his voice mysteriously. Sotingyu guessed that Gucci, as one of the early veteran players, must have heard about this kind of secret. Shan Yu had been in the parallel paradise for the shortest time and had not yet been able to grasp the secret information on this level. Real world, a trace of surprise flashed in Shan Yu's eyes. Sotingyu, yes, yes, the people and things here don't look like they were programmed at all. That. Sotingyu struck each other with his hands. There is a serious problem of antagonism between men and women in this dungeon world. The whole world is like a powder keg that can explode at any time. If there is any external stimulus, sister, do you think it will explode? What about after the explosion? Our purpose is not to cause destruction, right? At that time, the dungeon world will be in chaos, and the main quest will definitely appear. Even if the main quest does not appear, as long as we do it thoroughly, we can force the dungeon to shut down and kick us out. Regarding the dungeon's bad habit of kicking people at every turn, Sotingyu was a little depressed at first. But now, in addition to looking for clues about the main mission step by step, it is better to try to irritate the dungeon and force the dungeon to go offline, so that the players in the dungeon can also leave the dungeon. Is this okay? Shan Yu hesitated. He. You can do it, Sotingyu patted his small chest. I'm familiar with this matter. There is an old saying in China, there is a specialization in every profession. Since Susu is sure, we can try it. Okay. Let's first determine how to make the extreme yin zone a state of chaos. I have also thought about this issue, that is. Sotingyu and Shan Yu were chatting animatedly, but Gucci was unable to interrupt. If it was a normal way of clearing the level, Gucci could still participate in the discussion, but now, are these two women really going crazy? The dungeon system left the two of them in the darkest place, and they were still together. I really don't know who is causing harm to whom. He. Our positioning is, all villains. Our slogan is, do things professionally. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 746. Since we want to create chaos, we must choose some conflicting and sharp issues to break through. The superiority of women to men in the extremely yin zone is an excellent contradiction. Sotingyu planned to encourage men to revolt bravely and resist the evil and powerful women in order to gain their legitimate human rights interests. Of course, in the extreme yin zone, the idea that women are superior to men has been circulating for a long time. It has become deeply ingrained in people's minds and is difficult to eliminate in a short time. Therefore, Sotingyu is not all counting on the indigenous men in the extreme yin zone. Her real goal is actually to enter this dungeon world and happen to be teleported to the male players in the extreme yin zone. Blue Star has already entered a society where men and women are equal, and the male players who came out of Blue Star will definitely not be willing to succumb to the indigenous women in the extreme yin zone like pets. During this period, conflicts and resistance are bound to occur. But if they are scattered all over the place, it is far from enough to cause chaos or even major riots and disrupt the normal order in the extreme yin zone. What Sotingyu has to do is to find those players, and then gather them together to keep warm, and even plan to do things together. Although the extremely yin factor will make men's physiques weaker, the 7-day transformation period has not yet come, and male players with game props in hand are still stronger than men with extremely yin belts. My inventory can't be used. It's the 2nd day of the dungeon, and it's very likely that all male players staying in the yin zone will be restricted from using their inventory, Gucci said. When Sotingyu heard this, he immediately thought about how to deal with it. In that case, let's spend money to buy a batch of self-defense weapons for them in this dungeon world, and then everyone will wear protective clothing to reduce air contact as much as possible. Although Sotingyu didn't know how to eliminate the yin and yang factors, he also knew how the yin and yang factors spread, which was through the celestial climate, the air, and the human body's contact. However, the male player's inventory was unavailable, which was a small surprise beyond Sutingyu's plan. Gucci, can you contact the members of Shang-Xing? You should have a way to contact them quickly, right? Sutingyu asked. Gucci nodded slightly. That's good, let's go find the members of Xing first, and then find other players. Do you still need to think of a reason? A reason for a strange male player to join the plan and cooperate with you? Not every player can be fooled by your words, Gucci reminded. Leave this hellish place? Isn't that enough? Sutingyu asked back. It's okay for a female player to come to the extreme yin zone. However, those male players were in the extremely dark zone and had been in the dungeon for almost a day. Sutingyu believed that those male players must be very depressed, and they must be trying their best to find the main quest so that they could escape from this dungeon as soon as possible. Therefore, being able to leave the dungeon, or even retaliate against the indigenous woman before leaving the dungeon, is a fatal temptation. Put aside the plan to unite with other male players for now. It's only been 1 day since the dungeon time. Let's let those male players suffer a little more. When the time comes, it will be easier to accept our plan. That's okay. Shan Yu's eyebrows arched slightly. Sutingyu rubbed his little hands. Hey, let's summon the members of Xing first. With their boss as the hostage, I don't believe that they all won't cooperate obediently. Gucci. Shan Yu looked at Gucci for a few times, and then nodded in agreement. Indeed, if you are dishonest, we can break up the vote. Gucci.